Some people dream of making money, and others make it happen in a really big way. Now, Roy Osing is a guy who took a startup internet company to $1 billion in sales. And he's the only author, entrepreneur, and executive leader who delivers practical, proven, audacious, unheard of ways to produce high-performing businesses and successful careers. Roy is a former president, CMO, and entrepreneur with over 40 years of successful, unmatched executive leadership experience in every aspect of business. The first question I have is, what is the secret to your success?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
The secret to my success. Well, there isn't any such thing as one secret. Although there are a few things that I think worked really well for me, and the first starts with the notion of differentiation. Like, my mantra is be different or be dead, and I've written about this ever since I can remember. And the idea is that successful people and organizations always find a way to stand out from their competition in a way that really matters to people. Okay, so this isn't an issue about being different for the sake of being different. It's being different in a way that other people care about. And so the notion of differentiation for me was exceedingly important and remains important today. And matter of fact, we could do a whole show on this. I think organizations have got worse in terms of differentiating themselves. Okay, they use words like better, we're best, we're number one, we're the market leader. And of course, I call that claptrap communication, because quite frankly, it doesn't really mean a heck of a lot, right? To customers who, quite frankly, want to understand why they should buy from you and not your competitor. And so differentiation was important to me. And I had to figure out my own solution in terms of how to characterize what is unique for us versus everybody else, and then execute that flawlessly. So it starts with differentiation and it ends up with execution. Because I'm not one of these 5-year plan guys. I don't have much time for the sort of academic notion of pristine plans, because quite frankly, how can you be pristine in a world that's imperfect? Okay, what we need to help businesses, survive red oceans where it's imperfection and chaos. And that's the world that most of us business people live in. And that's the sort of thing that helped me navigate through a new industry, really, because the internet was just coming on stream and we had to navigate through it. So main points would be differentiation and execution. And I got lots to say about the strategy building process as well. But those are the two things that I would say were really helpful for us.
Thank you. Tell us more about your journey to building a company to $1 billion in annual sales.
Yeah, so I was in the telecom world back in the day when the internet was just beginning to come on stream, and that technology, IP technology, was just being developed. And I was sitting in a monopoly telephone company organization, and suddenly was asked to take the leadership role in actually building a data business, making use of internet technology. And it was incredibly challenging, as you can appreciate, because the culture was not the culture that we needed to win, right? It was a monopoly-based culture where we took orders and we were the only company in town. So what we had to do is create an environment, a culture, and a business that was highly competitive, customer-focused, really nimble, and differentiated from everybody else. And so that was the challenge. And we went to work, and we didn't have a number in mind. We knew that the internet opportunity was huge, and what we needed to do is a whole bunch of small practical things that lit fires in people in order to take advantage of that. And so that was the journey. And I must say to you, I get goosebumps every time I think of what we were able to do. because quite frankly, it was amazing how everybody came together with a little bit of guidance and leadership to actually achieve what we were able to do. And today that business is 18 billion a year. And I like to think that our team had just a little role to play in getting traction to get the company to that level.
Oh, that's interesting. Can I ask you, I'm different. I'm very different. But is that enough as an entrepreneur to make it really big?
Yeah, it is. The problem is that the way people are taught these days to be different is not the right way to go about it. Like, I deal a lot with entrepreneur CEOs, right? And they come to me with these ideas that they've got. And my first question is, how does the product and service you have, or the solution that you have, how is that different from everybody else out there? Typically, they're not able to answer the question. Okay. And then I tell them to stop. Okay. Unless they can figure out, how your solution, first of all, meets a craving that a customer has, not a need. I believe in cravings, because a craving is something that's got a lot of emotion and passion associated with it. And typically, organizations don't play into the craving space. The craving space doesn't have much competition, and it's not price sensitive. And so that's the place we need to get to. Entrepreneurs generally are technology driven. And the reality is most technologies are available to everybody. And even if they're not, you need to figure out a way to craft that technology into a benefit stream that's really, really unique. And so that's the problem. If in fact an entrepreneur can really solve what I would call the only problem. Okay, so here's the deal: you don't want to be better and best. You want to be the only one who does what you do. That's my solution to differentiation. You need to be the only one who does what you do, because if you are, it stands out. It's easy to observe. It's easy to measure, et cetera, et cetera. And most entrepreneurs aren't only at anything. What they do is provide a solution based on a technology that fundamentally is pretty common out there, and they think it's new. They think it's innovative. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's not about the entrepreneur. It's about the customer who's on the receiving end, and we need to pay more attention to that. So I would say that it begins with differentiation and it ends with execution. You can't have one without the other. You can't have a great idea and not execute, and you can't be different and go about executing at the tactical level and hope to be successful. It just won't happen.
Thank you. How do you turn a red ocean into a blue ocean, considering that you're already in a red ocean?
Yeah, you can't. Okay, what we need to do is help people be successful in red oceans. Okay, and that's not by being a blue ocean. Blue ocean is an interesting theoretical academic construct that says if you want to be successful, you must find a blue ocean. The reality is, okay, for most of us mere mortals, that will never happen. There is a way, though. There is a way, and we've just kind of talked about it, to carve out amazing success in a red ocean by differentiation and execution. Okay, so in other words, it's not in the efficacy of the idea of blue ocean. It's accept the reality that the red ocean is there. It's going to be painful. It's going to be highly competitive. It's going to be changing on you every nanosecond. Technology is going to be revolutionary. With all those sets of dynamics, the question is, how can an entrepreneur make it? Well, they're not going to make it by saying, I'm going to dismiss the red ocean, go find a blue ocean. Seriously? That's not ever going to happen. And in fact, small businesses go, seriously, Roy? I mean, how can people talk this way? I mean, I got to get out there every day in a red ocean and make it. How can I do that? Differentiate. And there's a whole raft of work behind that, by the way. It's an easy thing to say, but there's a lot that goes on behind that whole notion of differentiation and execution. And the same thing. I mean, my work, I've spent 40 years trying to figure it out. Okay, what are the details around differentiation? What are the details around successful execution? And I try and help businesses and entrepreneurs today leverage on that experience to actually maneuver themselves through a red ocean. But let's understand, entrepreneurial success is not a function of the idea. It's a function of what you do with the idea. Okay. And so in a way, and I'm hard on academics, okay, because I think they do a disservice to people, okay, by actually believing that you can find a blue ocean. How about 99% of the people who will never do that? and they need help. Why don't we deal with the 99%? That's Roy's world. I deal with 99% of the businesses out there who are struggling to make it in a red ocean, and I can help them by simply leveraging the stuff that worked for me, right? In terms of how to grow a business.
Thank you. So how do you find this thing that only you can do?
Yeah, well, first of all, you need to have an overall strategy. Now, the one thing I will say to you, I continually get asked that question, and I say I can't answer it. I can't answer it until we actually go through what I call a strategic game plan process. Like, I had to create my own strategy building process because traditional planning 101 doesn't work, okay, in a red ocean. It doesn't work because it's all predicated on finding the perfect idea, which doesn't exist. So I'm the let's head west guy, and let's execute and learn as we go, and we'll figure it out as we go. And so I had to create this strategic game plan that is based on a 24-month view. So that's the planning horizon. And it's really built to execute. It's not built to refine the strategy statement. Okay, that's for the academics, not the practitioners, right? And so I have 3 questions, okay, that we ask. And when we answer these 3 questions, we end up with the answer to your question, which is how do you create an only statement? The first question is, how big do you want to be? That's a question around growth, and it's all top line, right? It's not based on profits. It says if you're $1 million today or 0 today, where do you want to be in 24 months? Do you want to build a $500,000 annual income stream in 24 months, or do you want it 15 million? The reason we start off with that, Lily, is because it drives the character and the risk profile of the strategy. Whereas most strategy building processes build a plan and then look at the numbers. And then they say, oh, I don't like the numbers, so we'll change the assumptions, which is absolutely ludicrous. So we get the kids off the street, we get a how big. The next question is, where are you going to get the money? That's all about who do you want to serve? So the who do you want to serve question is define a small as you can number of customer groups that have the latent potential to deliver your how big. And then you figure out what they crave, not what they need, what they crave, what they lust for, what they covet, what keeps them awake at night, right? What loses sleep, right? Once we have that, then we go to the third question, which is, how are you going to compete and win? You're going to compete and win by being the only ones that do what you do. And so what you can see from that is the only statement is derived from a strategic context. It's not built on its own. Only statements exist to satisfy strategy, which is based on growth goals and the definition of target markets and what they crave. Because an only statement doesn't apply, for example, to a market. It applies to those customer groups that you've decided to serve. And so I take businesses through the process. We can do it in literally 48 hours. Okay, this is what you call let's get it done and get moving strategy building process that, by the way, works. How do I know that? Because it helped us get to $1 billion in annual sales. It's always the proof point. This is not a theoretical exercise, right? It's a matter of getting people in a room. I get leadership teams in a room. In 48 hours, we have their strategy built on an only statement. The other thing I will say to you and for your listeners is that be prepared to be surprised, because sometimes you end up with an only statement that you never thought of. Let me give you an example. I recently did work for a company in Toronto who were in the boat selling business. They thought they were selling boats to boat dealers, okay? And they said, we need a strategy. How can we do that? What we ended up doing is reframing their business. Okay, because when I asked the question, what are these boat dealers to whom this company sold boats? What's keeping them awake at night? What do they crave? And it hadn't anything to do with boats. What it was is they were afraid that their business would stop growing. So I said to the CEO, how can we play into that? Can we actually transform your business not to be selling boats, but to be providing business development solutions to the boat dealers to help them grow their business? And they go, wow. Oh, yeah, we could do that. I said, would you be the only ones who does what you do in that respect? And they go, hell yeah, everybody else is worrying about whether the boat's electronics work and whether the boat floats. he says, this is going to be awesome. And so they actually created an only statement that completely shifted their business. And that's a process, okay, of going through this context. You don't come up with this stuff. Like, it's not a tactical thing. And yet we as a society in a business environment where we thrive to try and find that quick and easy solution, and it doesn't exist. No, it can exist in 48 hours. To me, that's quick and easy, right? That's quick and easy. But yeah, so you go through the work, and there isn't one engagement that I've had that has not been successful in actually lighting the eyes and lighting the fires of a client that says, okay, now I know what makes me special. Now I know what we have to do to be truly different and to break away from the kind of norms out there and win in the marketplace. And that's the objective, right?
Yes, thank you. Can you give me an example of how this would work for my publishing business, for example?
Well, as I say, I'll have to go through a process, a strategy building process with you. Again, I can't give you the answer. It's like people always say to me, Roy, what do you think about my social media campaign? And I go, I have no idea, because I need to understand the strategy you're trying to achieve. And so for you, I would say there's a couple of things that you have to get done before. So you go through it. So you're at how many million now? I would be pushing you to come up with a big number of top line revenue 2 years from now, right? I'd make you uncomfortable. I'd make you perspire, because if you know how to get it, it's not big enough, because the how big drives innovation. Okay, I want to repeat that. Innovation comes from not knowing how to achieve something. It doesn't come from benchmarking and copying somebody, right? So that we would go through that. You'd be uncomfortable. You'd end up coming up with a number. And then the next piece would be, all right, where are we going to go get the money? Okay, which publishers, which clients, okay, make sense, have the latent potential to actually deliver that. Then we do a deep dive in terms of what they crave, not what they need. I don't care about what they need, because everybody else is doing it. And even if you did, you'd end up competing on price. Price gives you thin margins and not much success. Once we have that and the profile, then we ask the question, how can you be the only ones that does something relative to delivering value to those customer groups? And as I say, that's a 48-hour process. But yeah, I don't have the answer unless we go through the work.
Thank you. But how do you establish the craving? Like, how do you establish where the craving actually is?
So let's say that you've identified customer group A, B, and C. Okay, and you think that though by focusing on those three customer groups, they will generate enough revenue for you to satisfy your growth goals, which we've defined in the how big, right? So once we've identified those, we sit down and we actually do a deep dive into each and every one of those customers. We don't ask them, what do you crave? We have an engagement process that discovers that en route, right? And it's all in the questions, et cetera, et cetera. It's no different than this company that thought they were in the boat selling business. When I asked them what the boat did, what keeps them awake at night, the first thing they said is they're afraid that their business is going to stop growing. Had nothing to do with them selling boats. And so you just have that conversation. And another company that I just did some work for, they thought they were in the lawn cutting business. They do weeding and lawn cutting for strata corporations. When I asked them what keeps them awake at night, it wasn't about that specific function. It was about a holistic view of the property. And so what they ended up doing is morphing their business into the property development business. Property development, not lawn cutting. And the reason that made sense is they have access to all the resources they need, right, to do the individual pieces of property development. And so their staff is on a path to learn competencies that they never had to before. So it would work just as easily in your business as it would in a coffee shop. That's the beauty of the process. It's generic, and I've done enough work with people to be able to lead them in the direction that they need to go. I'm not a facilitator. I actually help create strategy based on my own experience.
Thank you. Give us some 3 examples of companies you've worked with where you have discovered the craving in the market, just like you mentioned the boat company.
Well, the boat company's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say three more.
Another example is business, a local business that were in the in the home they thought they were in the lawn cutting weed sort of trimming business. In other words, part of the thing, and we got them focused on strata corporations and property development solutions. So those are two immediate ones that I've been doing. But as I say, and I'm not out banging the bushes looking for more, quite frankly. If it comes my way, I'll do it. But it was quite revolutionary. And those are the top two that come to mind at the moment. I could dig up more if I had more time, but I'm not going to take your time.
Thank you. Tell us what other steps entrepreneurs need to take in order to take their business to $1 billion in annual sales.
Yeah. So it's really the billion's the billion, right? But it's more about what are the principles of growth, okay, that they need to understand. And so, in my opinion, there are two elements of kind of like Roy's billion-dollar growth model that applies, to everybody. We've already talked about the elements of one. It says, do you have a strategy? And once you have the strategy, I want you to loosen up on it. I don't want you to be mesmerized by trying to get the plan perfect, because it'll never be perfect. The moment you put pen to paper, it's already out of date. The real issue is get it just about right. And so I talk a lot about planning on the run. Let's get the plan just about right, using whatever information we have available, and start executing it. And so from a strategy point of view, and I've already outlined the process that I use, it's my strategic game plan. Get a strategic game plan that's built to execute. That will take 20% of our time. And then you move on to the execution piece. So you want to loose on strategy, you want to tighten up on execution, and you want to spend 80% of your time on execution and that plan, as opposed to today, it's actually the flip of that. Most organizations spend 80% on the plan and 20% on execution. And I'm the contrarian dude. I'm saying, no, you got that all wrong. It's 20% on the plan and 80% on execution. Within that construct, there are things that you can do in terms of strategy. We've talked about some of them. On the execution side, okay, there's a couple of things that worked really, really well for me. And one is called cleanse the inside. That's all about value delivery. I mean, this is the hard work. It's once you have a business started, you need to make sure that you can deliver that value flawlessly, 24/7, 365. Because if you don't, nobody cares about your strategy, right? If you're not delivering value to me in a way that I want. And so there's a whole piece of work that's around cutting the crap, hiring human being lovers, killing dumb rules, or creating rules that engage people, not control them. There's a whole piece of work around that underneath the umbrella of execution. And so that's part of the work that we do under the guise of developing a strategic game plan, because it follows. You get the plan, then you look at how you're going to execute. And I basically fall victim to the things that worked for me in a very large organization. I mean, it was 8,000 people. They work in 8 or 9,000 people organization. Somebody's got to explain to me why we can't do that in an organization of 10 people. Piece of cake, right? Piece of cake. The secret is to kind of get onto that concept, right? And the other piece is, for me, is to help entrepreneurs become serving leaders. So I come up with this notion of called leadership by serving around. And what it is it's the function and role of a leader to ask people, how can I help? How can I help? The how can I help question is not about necessarily do you believe in the strategy? It's more about what's getting in your way of executing it. And how can I help fix that for you? How can I help cleanse the inside so it's easier for you to do your job? And at the end of the day, that translates into amazing performance, because that's how you judge all this stuff, okay? You can have some pretty cool ideas, but I didn't do this stuff just because there were some, cutting the crap was a kind of a cool, nonsensical way to talk about cleaning the inside. These things actually worked in terms of driving top line revenue, because if they didn't, of course, there would be no motivation for me to do them. Right? Because again, being cool for the sake of being cool, being different for the sake of being different is nonsense. You're doing it to drive the performance of your organization. And in this case, making entrepreneurs extremely successful.
Thank you. Now, once you've established the craving for your product or service and your unique selling point, where do you find the people to buy the products and services?
Well, again, that's in the customer groups that you just defined that have the latent potential to deliver your how big. So you've already got those. The cravings are based on what you believe your customer groups are. So you've already selected those. So now when you have the value proposition created, it's a matter of targeting that value proposition back into the customer groups you've already identified. In other words, it's not a mass market thing here. It's like I got 3 segments. I believe those 3 segments are going to give me my revenue. So get the value proposition, get the only statement, and then go market into those people. If you happen to attract others, great, good on you. Okay. But I want you to stay focused. And this is the other thing that entrepreneurs have difficulty doing. They chase stuff. I call it yummy. They chase yummy. This feels good. And I got a new technology, right? And I start out by applying the technology here, and then I discover, it can be used over here. So I go chase that. And then I discover, and they go chase that. That's yummy incoming behavior, and it'll kill you. It will kill you. It takes your eye off the ball. You got to stay focused on who you want to serve, what they crave, and delivering value that is unique into those segments. If you do that and stay focused on that, you will be more successful than chasing every opportunity that comes your way. I mean, I've worked with some guys that they chased and they died. You chase and you die. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Now let's say that some of your clients are on LinkedIn or they are in a particular company. How do you go about marketing to those people?
Well, as I say, I mean, the communications channels for all of those customers need to be looked at individually. And one of the things for me is don't assume that what you've got is what you need to continue to communicate and transform that individual into an engaging customer and one that's going to buy. And so it's a matter of questioning everything that you've got. Like, it's not, how can I use social media? It's what social media elements do I need to deliver the value proposition to those customers I've defined, okay, that will give me my growth goals. Okay, so I'm not in the weeds, okay, through this stuff. The weeds will be defined as we go through the work. It's just like, what's the role of artificial intelligence? Okay, it depends. In other words, the job of the entrepreneur isn't to take artificial intelligence and drive it into the market. It's to figure out how artificial intelligence can satisfy the cravings of the target market you've just identified. Then go do it. All right. And the problem is today, we love to chase tactics, don't we? We love to be part of the mainstream. Okay. Oh, AI is in. We got to go practice AI. Whoop, LinkedIn's in and blah, blah. All these applications. And it concerns me because all we're doing is running at what we think is in. Okay. The cool idea of the day. Let's go run at it. And I keep asking the fundamental questions. How big do you want to be? Who do you want to serve? How are you going to compete and win? And now let's look at all these fun things to figure out if they fit at all. And if they do, how do they fit?
Thank you. How do you communicate to this newly selected niche market in a way that it appeals to them and you communicate that you have the solution to their craving?
Yeah. And it depends on how they want to be talked to. Well, like, I'm not going to bite, okay, at the question that says, be specific. Every customer has a different way they want to engage with the entrepreneur or the organization. Okay, the secret is to figure what that preference is and then communicate into that preference. Some people are quite happy dealing with online communications. Other people are not. And so if you have those customer groups that we talked about, okay, what you need to do is, along with what they crave, you need to figure out the best way to communicate with them. And they will tell you. You just have to ask the question, and then you create a marketing program behind that that communicates in the way they want to do business with you. And that's how you deliver your value proposition. I mean, some people might love text messaging, right? Which I happen to really enjoy as a way to engage, but not other people are like that. And so now you have a choice. Okay. Do you force a text messaging solution on all of those customers, or do you personalize it? My world says personalization is the way to go. You try and do your best to flex with the needs of the customers you've decided to serve. Because if you don't, then you can't count on them to give you the revenue you're expecting that they will deliver. I mean, so you get caught. You can't have it both ways. You have to have it one way, and it's their way.
Thank you. You talk about audacious, unheard of ways to grow your business to £1 billion pounds or dollars in annual sales. So I wonder, what's audacious and what's unheard of from your method versus other methods that are out there?
So by using the word audacious, I'm trying to communicate breakaway thinking. I'm trying to communicate courageous thinking. I'm trying to communicate out of the box, creating new box thinking. I'm trying to create risk taking. I'm trying to create the image of being courageous and bold. Okay. And I'm doing that very specifically. Okay. As most people are caught in tradition, and they're caught in doing things the way they've always done things. They're caught in the position of doing things the way the academics and textbooks say, okay, that were promulgated in the 1890s. Okay. My view is that's not going to work. You cannot assume that what worked yesterday will make you successful tomorrow. So the whole notion of audaciousness is blow it up. Okay, blow it up and go through the process that we've just described and create and invent something and a way of doing business that actually makes sense within a strategic context that you've created for yourself. So the notion of audacious is to shake them up. Unheard of is literally true in the sense that the things that we did to build this business were absolutely unheard of. And they were unheard of then, and they're unheard of today. The strategic game planning process that you and I have just talked about, nobody else does that. The only statement that you and I have talked about, nobody else talks about that. The killing dumb rules, cleansing the inside approach to increasing efficiency and effectiveness in an organization, nobody else talks about that. The other thing that I want to say is nobody else talks about hiring for Goosebumps. I talk about hiring for Goosebumps. It is my recruitment strategy, okay, that's predicated on the fact that we need people in organizations that love human beings, okay? We need people who care about humans. And why do I say that? It's because at the end of the day, we're in a service business. Okay, we transact with people predicated on how we serve them. And it's amazing to me that we got all the textbooks out there promulgating flog this, flog that, flog products, as opposed to how can I help? The how can I help notion says, I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to pitch back to you. First of all, did I get it right? And we're going to have a conversation on that. And I might learn something about you, whether you really are a Cab fan or you like, Zinfandel. I'll figure that out, right? And when I come back to you, it's going to be, well, how about this? Right? It's not going to be flogging. So that serving mentality requires somebody that actually likes people. And so I had to create my own recruitment process. You talk about unheard of. I mean, I got so many people mad at me in my company when I did this, and it goes really simple. First of all, I used to get involved as a president in every interview. We had panel interviews, particularly in the customer service environment, because we had this huge customer service strategy because we were going from a monopoly into a competitive business. So we had a lot of transformation to make there, right? And so I would get involved and my direct reports would be involved. So there would be a panel of people and this one candidate. So it must have been pretty intimidating, right? Not only to the candidate, but also the people in the room. And so I would ask this one simple question, and it would be, Lily, do you like human beings?
Yes.
you typically would say yes, or you'd think, oh, this is a trick question, but I think he wants me to say yes. And of course you would say yes. And I would then ask the next question. I'd say, tell me a story. Tell me a personal story that would show me how much you love your fellow human beings. that question separated the ones who were treating it as kind of like an academic sort of process versus those that actually had in their DNA structure a natural love for people. Okay. And so when they told a story, what would happen to me is it would be warm and passionate, and it left me with goosebumps. That's where the notion came from. And I would hire that person and teach them how to do the job, because I can't teach them how to love people. You can teach them how to grin, right? Yeah. Like, hi, how are you? Yeah, and you know, right? You just know those kind of people. They're phony, superficial. I didn't want those kind of people in my organization. I want people that actually love them. It has two advantages. One is to the outside, which is the customer set, but it's also on the inside. If you have a culture of people that care for one another, wow. I mean, we talked about cleaning the inside earlier. Watch the inside of the organization clean itself, right? And deliver value. And so that was unheard of then. It's unheard of today. In fact, a little while ago, I did a podcast with an HR professional out of New York. You would love this, right? So we're talking about this, and I could see she's in pain, man. She's not buying any of this, right? She's in pain. I finally stopped and I said, You're really having difficulty with this goosebumps thing. And she says, yeah. She says, I think it's ridiculous. She says, there's no books, there's no process, there's no writings on this, whatever. I mean, do you have any statistics? I said, no. All I know is we got $1 billion in sales, and that was one of the arrows in our quiver, was hiring for goosebumps. We had to stop the interview. She couldn't handle it. I said, we probably should call it a day. And so that was the most extreme reaction I've got. I've got a lot of people, and I had them in my own company. Our HR EVP said, what, Roy, seriously? What are you doing? And I explained it to him. He goes, okay, I get it. But the people who are in my organization, when I talked to them this way, they loved it. Absolutely loved it. So hiring for Goosebumps, unheard of then, unheard of now.
I love the way you said that. It's so funny. Where can people find you?
Sure. My website is bedifferentorbedead.com. Come and see me. Come and join me. Come and hang out with me. I've tried to get as much resource on there as I can. Look, I've been writing about this stuff since 2009. I wrote my first book called Be Different or Be Dead, Your Business Survival Guide in 2009. And that the focus there was on, because the economy was kind of challenging, was more about the economic and the thrivability of businesses and that kind of structure. But since then, I've written 7 books, to my latest one being The Audacious Unheard-Of Ways That Took a Startup to $1 billion. So you can see those books. You can also, I've been blogging every week. So there's a ton of content on the website about the sorts of things that you and I have been discussing. There's a quiz on my website. Take the Be Different or Be Dead quiz and find out, are you doing things that are truly different? And it's nothing more than a fun way of people to assess where they are and decide, oh, okay, I need to pick up some marketing tips here. So maybe I should go and do that. I've now got my podcast player on my homepage, because I do a lot of podcasts and podcasting. So that's there as well. Again, just different ways of coming at the content, right? And lastly, I've got an email. My email address is roy.osing@gmail.com. And I'm really happy to have a one-on-one conversation with people. And in fact, it's really quite fun, okay? Because I get emails from people after we'll do a show like this, and they'll say, well, okay, I worked on my only statement. Here's my only statement, Roy. What do you think? And it's a wonderful way to engage with people, and hopefully I can help them, and they understand, and they improve, kind of where they want to go in their career and their business life. So come and visit me. I'm really happy. And if there's anything I can do for anyone, all you need to do is ask Papa Roy.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and